Hello and welcome to the Minds on the Frontline Podcast, brought to you by the Frontline Strong Together 5 program. FST5 provides streamlined access to behavioral and mental health services, as well as crisis resources for Michigan's Frontline 5 workers and their families. This includes all professional, part-time, and volunteer firefighters, EMS, law enforcement, corrections officers, and 911 dispatchers in Michigan and their immediate family members. First responders and mental health experts collaboratively created FST5 to provide 24/7 live support, effective resources, and cutting-edge services to prevent and alleviate PTSD, anxiety, depression, and other frontline work-related mental and behavioral health challenges. Need help now? If you are a frontline worker in Michigan or an immediate family member experiencing any crisis, work-related, substance abuse, depression, relationships, finances, or any other, reach out by calling 1-833-34-STRONG or go to fst5.org for more information. I'm Jeff Lassers, one of the hosts of the Minds on the Frontline podcast, and I'm a professional firefighter, paramedic, educator, and content creator. Minds on the Frontline is co-hosted by Mike Mattern, who is also a professional firefighter and paramedic. In addition, Mike is a peer support team member for his fire department and the Frontline Strong Together 5 program, a board member of the Michigan Crisis Response Association, and the former chair of the Michigan Professional Firefighters Union Behavioral Health Committee. Mike has training and experience with frontline worker mental and behavioral health. On the other hand, I do not. My role is to produce the show, whereas Mike is our resident subject matter expert. Together, we hope to inform, educate, and entertain frontline workers, their families, and the public regarding the realities of frontline work-related mental and behavioral health challenges. It is crucial for every frontline worker to be prepared for retirement on all fronts, physically, financially, and perhaps most importantly, emotionally. While resources and systems are in place to support physical and financial readiness, emotional preparation has often been overlooked. In this episode, we have the pleasure of sitting down with Steve Perna, a retired firefighter and paramedic who served the city of Warren for 25 years. Steve's career spanned a period of significant change in the fire service, marked by increased call volumes and dwindling personnel, which intensified the physical and emotional demands of the job. Having transitioned from a high-pressure frontline role to an administrative training position before ultimately retiring, Steve offers a unique perspective on the toll that decades of service can take on one's mental health. During this episode, Steve opens up about his personal journey through burnout, the challenges faced in the latter part of his career, and the pivotal moment when it became clear that it was time to retire. He candidly shares how, despite moving to a less physically demanding role in fire administration, the emotional stress persisted, leading him to seek therapy just before retiring. This decision not only helped him cope with the immediate pressures of the job, but also laid the groundwork for a healthier transition into retirement. This episode emphasizes how crucial mental health support is, not just during retirement, but throughout your entire career. Taking care of your mental well-being early on can lead to a more fulfilling life after service. Steve's story serves as a powerful reminder that preparing for retirement isn't just about finances. It is also about being emotionally ready for the next chapter of life. Now that Steve is retired, he has turned his focus to woodworking, including crafting the beautiful podcast table in the Minds on the Frontline studio. You can see more of his work on Instagram and at pernawoodcraftdesign.com. Please check us out on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook, and make sure to like and subscribe to all Minds on the Frontline podcast social media channels. Thank you, and enjoy the show. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning. Good morning.
How are you?
I'm great.
Thanks for joining us, Steve.
Oh, thanks for having me.
So everybody knows who we are, but they don't really know who you are,
Yeah.
even though that gave them a brief overview in the introduction. So in your words, who are you? What do you do? Where do you do it?
Well, I'm retired now, and
Cool.
So I guess I do it at home. But before that, I was on Warren Fire Department for 25 years, and I retired out at the training position. So
Right on. Now for context, the city of Warren's one of the bigger cities in Michigan.
Yep.
Lots of calls.
Yes.
And over the time of your career, you went from having a lot of human resources that you went on those calls with. Calls kept going up, but the amount of people available to go on those calls kept going down.
It did.
Just like everybody else, right?
Right. Yeah. We went down about 50 guys, give or take. And our volume went from about 10,000 to almost 20,000 when I retired.
And so during your career, a Warren firefighter goes on a lot of calls.
We do. Yeah. It's not unusual when I was on the squad to take 24 people to the hospital in a 24-hour shift.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
It doesn't even seem possible, but when you get a quick turnaround, you can do it.
Yeah. 16 was a slow day.
Right.
Hey, we had time to go get a bite to eat real quick.
It seems, right.
Yeah.
It's an inhumane workload that people I don't think appreciate what cities like that go through. And City of Warren is just like a piece of what other cities like it are going through.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we're no exception. I mean, I know we like to compare like, we go on 20,000 runs, but you divide that up by 6 stations and then you look at other departments with 1, 2, 3 stations, they're going on the same volume,
right.
Per station, they're going on the same amount.
Yeah, there's some stations, some cities are just a couple square miles.
Mm-hmm.
And they go on as many runs per vehicle and human as New York City.
Right. Isn't it crazy? It's crazy.
It's crazy.
Yeah. And this is happening everywhere.
Yeah.
So my point of kind of teeing that up is what is 25 years of, the compound interest of more calls every year with less people around? What did that, you went out at 48. Tell us about 25 years, 48. Why did you leave so young?
Well, I didn't feel young at the time. I could see why. I was burned out. Yeah. And, I took the training position thinking that I was burned out, on the road and I needed to get off the road. And I did, but it didn't go away, the burnout. Now I've got all kinds of new stresses. Working a 9 to 5 compared to the 24-hour shift was a whole new stress. Yeah, I don't know if you guys have done it yet.
No, and I never want to.
So I currently did a light duty.
It was almost like a retirement in itself, going to a 40-hour position because you're going into work every day. You're dealing with deadlines versus you got a time of call and an in-service time, and that run is for the most part done, and you go on to the next one. Things get finished up.
Well, and you're around all the socializing that you really love about the job while you're doing the job, where you lose that with now I got the same uniform on. I got all these other responsibilities. Got people asking me for stuff all the time. I feel like my responsibilities increase like crazy.
And you're one of those guys.
Oh, you're one of the front office.
Which I never saw those guys, but I didn't want to be one of them. But you know what I'm saying?
So did that transition over to that side of things make you feel like maybe I am more ready to go?
Yeah, okay. I think so. So when my time came up, I hem and hawed a little bit, and then I kind of forget the timeline exactly, but I came into work on Monday, and it was just like started bad right off the bat, and I'm like, what am I doing here? I don't have to be here anymore. I don't have to deal with everything, my stress, the stress of the job. So
you had that epiphany of, excuse the language, fuck this.
Oh, absolutely. Like, just getting your retirement, making it to your retirement date was like, okay, I've made it now, So I called up human resources and I'm like, when's my best next day? Well, it'd be like, your actual last day would be Friday, but you'd really retire on the following Tuesday because there's, I think, Martin Luther King Day. Okay, Friday's going to be my last day. And I didn't tell anybody at administration. I went in on Wednesday and I finally told them, I says, yeah, Friday's going to be my last day. And they were just, what? Well, we haven't gotten anybody in your place. Well,
I think that kind of speaks to where you were, is that you couldn't even think about a plan to pitch it off to somebody else because you didn't have it anymore.
I was checked out. Yeah.
Right.
I was checked out.
And how many people feel that in the last 5 years?
So
in any job,
I think
right?
a lot.
I think a lot.
Yeah. And I don't want to say like, oh, I'm a better man or whatever. I don't judge, but I'm glad I came to that, realize that I'm not doing the fire department that I love, not only the fire service, but the Warren Fire Department. I love the Warren Fire Department, but I wasn't doing them any service, sticking around anymore. So I had a rough plan of what I wanted to do when I retired, but did it. I talked to my wife about it, obviously, and I says, I got to go. And she knew I was burned out, and thank God I got a great wife. And she said, you got to do what you got to do. We'll figure it out.
Now, at that point in your life, were you introspectively recognizing that, you were dealing with some stuff? And were you seeking help?
I had just started, like maybe a month before retirement.
Do you think that impacted maybe your thought processes? Like you were seeing what was making you happy and not?
I think it did. Huh? Yeah, I think it did. Because not so much what was making me happy, but what was making me unhappy. Okay. And I knew I could kind of escape from part of it.
What was blocking your happiness?
Right. So instead of adding to more unhappiness, I could draw the line in the sand and say, all right, let's start taking care of myself and we'll move on from there.
So you saw something that you could change to make your happiness better, is what you're saying.
Or take control.
Take control.
I think it was more take control. I didn't think I was going to necessarily make myself happy, but I was going to make myself no more unhappy.
Yes.
Right. You're going to remove you're going to remove objective things that are not giving you happiness.
Exactly. I'm going to take out the job was not fun anymore.
To the point where you couldn't even think of a succession plan.
You couldn't think of next week.
Right.
Even,
right. Yeah. I'm leaving Friday's my last.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this.
Next week ain't even happening.
Right. So that maybe had a realization, help you recognize maybe what's blocking me from feeling okay.
Right.
But also, do you think, you just said you got therapy like the last couple of months.
If that, maybe a month.
And you went through an entire career where the generation around you didn't talk about this.
Oh, absolutely.
Did that stop you from maybe walking down this road a little bit sooner, and maybe your retirement would have been a little bit smoother? Not to say you have to work any longer, but maybe going out not feeling burned out would be better.
In retrospect, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, we talked last night about a couple of runs I had back in Taylor, which I worked there about a couple of years, like 93 to 95, and I got hired in Warren.
They call pre-service, right?
Pre-service, yeah. We were auxiliaries there, and we had some bad, a couple of bad runs there, and it was just like, I think one of the guys said, listen, this is the job. If you can't handle it, you got to think about another career,
And what he meant by you can't handle it wasn't like you need to learn how to process it. What he was saying was like, that just happened and you got to be okay with it.
Exactly.
That's a different thing than you got to handle it by learning how to process it adequately.
Right. Mike and I have talked, in a perfect world, yes, I think everybody should be given a card. Here, you can talk to this person on day one of your job. This is a therapist that knows first responders and understands them, and they're able to help you, and it's changing. Thank goodness, some of what you guys are doing. And I think young people, therapy is just almost a way of life now. Every kid, well, I don't say every kid, but you know what I'm saying, comparatively, every kid has a therapist. I saw a young lady when I was working at Jimmy John's Field as an usher, and it was First Responders Day, so I wore my uniform, and we started talking. She wanted to get into the FBI, and says, I really can't give you any advice. I don't know the police side of it. I says, but what I can tell you is get a therapist now. She goes, oh, I've been in therapy for years.
Isn't that funny? They're like, yeah, it's like having
second nature,
a general practitioner.
Right. Yeah.
Everybody has their general practitioner therapist now.
Exactly, or a dentist. And I'm thinking, this girl's going to, at the end of her career, is going to be in much better shape than my generation.
Not only that, when she goes home every day, she's got a better chance of not building the tension.
Yeah.
Oh. Right. And I'm no expert, but the way I feel is it seems like the first responders are stress and anxiety, whatever it is. It's like filling a bucket with an eyedropper, right? Where a military guy may see one tragic event and get PTSD or have to deal with that. We see a little bit all the time for 25 years. And when you get to the end of your career, your bucket is pouring over if you don't have that.
It's hard to miss that micro dosing.
Right.
When you have that one large sentinel event, it's easy. But like you're talking about, each one of those little drops in the bucket for 25 years, you don't realize each day it gets heavier until the bucket's full. And you're like, holy shit, I'm holding this bucket's like overflowing.
And one of the things that Dr. A pointed out in previous episodes was that It's also the fact that we experience those traumas, those microdose traumas in our home environment, in our own cities. Whereas the military, luckily in the United States, most of those tragedies that they experience are overseas.
Right.
So when they're home, they're at least physically away from that environment.
Right.
Whereas like the house I go to help somebody usually looks a lot like my house.
Or you're going to be driving by it when you go grocery shopping.
Right, whatever, right? So you get the constant microdosing, the constant reminders, and you enter a literal city of experiences.
Right. I didn't like driving through Warren when I first retired. I didn't even want to go to my credit union that was in the...
Wow.
I was just like... And again, it wasn't because I hated my job, but I needed that break, like that, let's get stuff back on track. And now, it's better now. And I talked to some guys, a couple of guys that are still on the job, but mostly it's retirees. But it is a very strange, and I know everybody, whether you're a first responder or not, deals with retirement, right? So there's all of that too, right? Like, am I worthless now because I was an engineer for 35 years and now I'm retiring, or whatever you did? Now you got that as a firefighter. Am I worthless now? Firemen are kind of like one-trick ponies.
Well, one of the things you always introduce yourself, or you get introduced. A lot of times it's not even the first responder. It's other people giving you an identity when they give you an introduction to somebody else.
Right.
So now like it's missing, which nobody really cares, but you're thinking about it.
And it kind of bugged me because they would be like, oh, you're coming up, I tell them, I got 24 years. I'm starting to think about retirement. Oh, what are you going to do? And I'm like, I don't know. Whatever I want.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, that's the part of retirement, I guess, that I was always thinking about. Like,
they don't tell you can have a bunch of time because, we talked about this: physical, financial, emotional. If you have those three pillars together, your stool's going to be balanced. You're not going to fall, probably, right?
Right.
But they don't fill in that emotional one other than, you should be healthy and you should maybe go get help. But at the same time, like, there's all this time.
Right.
There's no planning or thought of what I'm going to do with my heart and my mind after.
And there's
if I got a bunch of time and money, it's useless.
And there's a lot of time.
Yeah, a lot.
I mean, guys will say, well, I'm going to go golfing every day, or I'm going to go fishing every day. Yeah, it sounds like fun, but going golfing 6 days a week, or, you know what I mean? To me, it's like the easy answer. Well, I'm just going to go golfing every day. Like now I've got my retirement.
I think maybe what you're saying is also to be introspective and be like, I can't fill my time with avoidance techniques.
Yeah, exactly.
I got to have coping skills and I got to have a calm heart.
We've been talking here and you kind of been reflecting back on your career and retirement and that kind of stuff. When did you kind of first realize the importance of mental health support, and how did that kind of influence your approach to retirement?
Like I was saying earlier, I was getting burned out, and I knew something had to give. I didn't want to self-medicate myself, and I think we, as first responders, we know what that is.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So I reached out. I called Mike, and I said, hey, I need some names. He gave me one person, but
the Mike was already established and doing what he's doing. So how nice is that to have? Because, man, how many times have we said you call a buddy and just, hey, who do I call? And you just do that.
Right. Well, and he's a family member, so that made it a
helps.
little bit easier, again, because of the generation that I was brought up in the fire service. So I talked to that person, and she directed me to somebody closer, because I said, I want to talk face-to-face with somebody. I just felt more comfortable, or at the time, that's just what And I remember calling that person and setting up an appointment and like breaking down. Like I could feel just making that appointment, like the stress starting to start to alleviate.
Permission to
melt away.
Yeah. And I hadn't even gone to therapy yet. And I'm like,
because you knew you were going to get help.
Right. Exactly.
And it built up so long.
Right.
That you cried calling.
Yeah.
Been there. Like you just, it's this release of just knowing.
It's like the dam broke.
Right, and you didn't even do anything yet.
Right.
Isn't that funny?
Well, because you now have hope.
That's my point.
I think that, exactly.
You now have hope.
Right.
And it doesn't need to be so dramatic. Is what we're saying
No.
is we don't need to have dams break. We just got to get there way sooner.
So
A, it doesn't delay the
Yes.
call, and B, I don't have to feel like crap when I'm making it.
Let's put some holes in that bucket.
Put a spigot on the bucket.
Right?
Yeah.
So we can get rid of some of that stuff before it gets too heavy. And, for whoever hasn't, my generation, if you want to call it whatever, therapy is not what you think. It's not like the head games or anything. I've gone there sometimes, and I think my therapist says like 3 words. You know,
Yeah.
sometimes it's just
a
like,
good therapist won't talk too much, right?
Yes.
right. To me, it's just like I need somebody that I can tell my thoughts. And a lot of times when I have a problem, she'll go, well, how would you like this to work out then? Or how are you going to handle it? I've got the answers, but I need somebody not to give me their answer. Well, you should just do this. Or,
No, they're giving you more questions.
right, because it just confuses you more.
Yes. But a quality therapist is going to ask you questions that allow you to ask questions about why you feel something.
Right.
And that's the point.
In a way, they're leading, but they're not leading to what they want you to say.
They don't know the answer.
They're leading you to the answer you
already had. Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's your answer.
Right.
I'm
So-
just helping you express it.
You know, wherever they're at in their career, get a therapist. If nothing else, meet with them a couple of times, he or her, whoever it's going to be. And now you've got them in your back pocket, like we said. You know, now you know that you've got somebody when you get a bad call or when it's time to retire, and you're dealing with retirement. You've already established that relationship.
You recognize that, looking back now, that it's very valuable, but it wasn't a sentinel moment that did that? Or do you think it was like in those last few months, like, yo, I'm feeling it all kind of came to a head? Or was there a time before that you recognized that mental health was important? You just weren't talking about it.
I didn't know. Because of it just wasn't talked about.
Yeah, you could feel a certain way and not know where it's coming from.
And I think going over to the 40 hours, I still had all the stress from the road, and now I got two buckets, so to speak. You know, I got the 40-hour stress, and I still am dealing with the stress of burnout. And I hope people don't fool themselves. I mean, I think if you don't, I'm not a therapist or anything, but in my opinion, if you go on bad runs and they don't bother you, there's something wrong with you. You know what I'm saying?
That's the third time we've heard that in this room.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, really, if you go on, you know what bad runs are.
No, totally.
Oh, yeah.
If you're not affected, you're like Dexter. We need to talk.
Right. Yeah. You got bigger problems than that not bothering you. So it's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay to not be okay. And I think that was the part that, even if that guy back in Taylor would have told me that, something as simple as, it's okay to be bummed out right now, or it's okay to be pissed off, or whatever you're feeling, it's okay. You have to deal with it in your own way, but you need to acknowledge it.
It wasn't even a debriefing like we did our best. We do what we can.
No.
We could move on.
Well,
There's none of that.
The one in particular run, I'd rather not talk about the whole story, but he did stand up for us, okay? And it wasn't because we did something bad, but the family reached out and acknowledged us, and the chief hid that acknowledgement, like the thank you, even though the run went bad. And the chief didn't give us that because he didn't think we needed it. And the full-time guy found out about it. And
every first responder will tell you that means a lot.
That's everything.
Just acknowledge it.
Yeah. And he lit that chief up, man. We could hear him screaming, and we didn't even know what it was about. And we're like, oh man, I wonder what's going on in there.
Sounds like somebody didn't know how to tell you to process it.
Right.
Because they didn't know how to, but they understood the value of those other circumstances that can help us. It really does help when a family recognizes that we did everything.
Right.
It's a huge thing.
I think you talk to any first responder, you can save all the awards, the medals, the everything. You can save all that and don't even give it to me. If that family calls and says thank you, that's better than any medal, whatever that anybody can ever give you.
Because you feel like you're letting them down. Yeah.
That's why I'm here.
Yeah.
That's the reason.
Exactly.
Now you talked about, like, in retirement, you had a whole bunch of time. You know, and unfortunately, we've heard it before. Time is not your friend in retirement.
And I may have had more time than others because I retired in February of 20, so like 10 seconds before COVID.
So just before COVID.
Yeah, I think that's where he's going.
So, yeah. You're sitting there, COVID, all by yourself, at home, isolated. Right. Now, we've talked to other retirees. Did you have all those runs that you put up on that shelf for that many years? Like,
what's that like? You're alone. You got COVID. Yeah. You're battling this. Luckily, you got a therapist maybe helping you with some coping skills as you transition.
Yep.
But that doesn't mean it's easy.
No.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, no,
so what's that first year like alone with those thoughts?
The first year was pretty rough. I'm not going to lie. And I think that's rough for anybody that retires because you've left your family, right? The fire family. You've left them.
Family 3, people forget about.
And now I feel I got this like guilt. Like I left them and COVID's out and I could be helping them. Even though I'm on 40 hours, I, do whatever you can to help them. And my wife is remote teaching on her computer. It's tough on her. My kids are doing online classes. They hate it because they'd rather be in class. And I really got no purpose now. I don't have anything to fill up my time. I'm going once every other week or once a week to the therapist online, but that's only an hour out of however many hours are in a week, right? So, and for as tough as it was, and I thought about this last night, I think it kind of helped a little too because I had to figure out what I was going to do. So I had time to think about what I'm going to do. What am I going to do when this is all over, right? Because it's going to be over, COVID, one way or another. I might not be here. I might get it and not be here, but one way or another it's going to be over. So when it's over, what am I going to do with myself, right? And I had decided even before, I don't want to say before I thought about retiring, but I knew when I retired, I wanted to do something completely different. I'll kind of reinvent myself, so to speak. And
right. No shaving, no uniform.
Amen. Yeah, I have here pretty much since then. Yeah. And my wife likes it, so I might as well keep it, right? Anything that helps. So, so what am I going to do? Now that's like a big question. It wasn't really stressful, but it really made me sit and think and like, what am I going to, I still want to help people, So I didn't know, I don't know what I'm going to do. And then things, talking to my therapist, she says, something will come, just keep thinking. You got to keep your mind open. Something will come. So sure enough, I got into woodworking because I was on YouTube trying to fill time and I came across a woodworker. I started following him. And then one day I told Amy, I said, I'm going to go buy a table saw. She goes, I think that's a great idea.
Get you out of the house.
Yeah, she's like, whatever gets you out of the house. Yeah, that sounds great.
So the next thing you know, I've taken over the garage and I'm cutting wood, and it's great. It's therapeutic. I like the process of figuring out the problems or whatever. And then Amy came home. When she started going back, it was pretty soon. She says, hey, I was talking to our principal and she was looking for somebody to do part-time maintenance and your name came up. Are you interested? I go, I don't know. I says, I'll go talk to her. I had known her for a while. So I went in there and this is the great part about being retired is like, whether I get this job or not, I really don't care.
Right.
I mean? And I don't want to sound jerky or anything, but
no, it's second life, man.
Right.
No, you're playing with house money, man.
Exactly.
You did all the right things physically and financially to be in a position where you can do stuff. Right. And now you fortified that third pillar to be like, well, now what makes me happy?
Exactly.
That's what matters.
And as first responders, we've given a lot, right? So now it's about us, right? Yep. So I go in there, I says, but I'm only going to work Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. She says, whatever you want to do, we're happy. So so I work Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday at the school doing maintenance, and
that's cool.
Like
so you found your pocket.
Yeah, and I love helping the little kids. I'm starting to get to know them. And
it's your new firehouse, new little tribe.
Oh yeah. I got
less coffee.
Exactly. So the coffee isn't nearly as strong. So,
so let me ask you.
Same gossip.
Right.
So you exit the job luckily with the assistance of a therapist. I love that idea.
Yeah.
If any time in your life you get therapy as a frontline worker, it should be a couple months before you retire and into retirement. Do you feel that was huge in helping you with coping strategies during this time? Because you probably had all these thoughts. You didn't know what to do with them. So it was almost like, why suffer in it? At least get it out.
Right. And here's the thing too. If you love the fire service and you want to work longer and happier, get a therapist.
Early.
Yeah, early.
Right.
Yeah,
so you
early.
don't have to talk about all this stuff at the very end.
Right.
And now you have a way of coping with all this while you're on the job. And maybe you can put in an extra 5 years because you know how to deal with the things you see.
I think the quality of your last years will improve too. Unfortunately, how many firefighters, this is not unique to my department, so please don't assume this is my department, this is every department. How many people have you seen their last year and what we remember them for was in that last year, and they may not have been real happy. Their actions may not have been who they really were.
Mm-hmm.
They get squirrely.
That's what I'm saying.
Yes.
And so then, another thing I've learned being on this podcast is looking back to who those people really were.
Yeah.
And their best of times. That's who I remember. But those people could have maintained who that was had they had the help through their career and recognizing you got to offload this bull crap.
Right. And therapy, again, is what you make of it. So this whole notion like, they're going to change me. They're going to change you, but it's going to be for the better. And you got to realize that. They're not going to, it's not mind games. They're not going to manipulate you. And I think that was what the perception was back when I started, and you guys with working with first responders, I mean, this is like a fledgling area of help. And I'm just glad that the younger generation has already embraced this, and we've kind of broke the cycle.
I don't think it's also just a therapy. I think it's talking to one another.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Just
I think
open about your feelings. Yeah.
Yeah, like you mentioned, you and I would shoot the shit back and forth.
Yeah.
And how many we talked about it last night. I mean, like, how many times did we were at a family event, him and I would go off and we would just talk about runs. Looking back now, though, we were doing peer support.
You're doing cathartic discussion.
Yeah.
Desensitizing.
He's seeing the same things I'm seeing.
Yeah.
I'm not alone.
Yes.
Right.
And I think
Aunt Mary's in the corner talking about her problems. She's watching the news, complaining about that. You're like, I actually went on calls. And
we're at Grandma's house. Him and I are in the kitchen, laughing about some stupid shit.
Yeah.
But I think that's just as important as doing the therapy is talking to one another as well.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think that's another change that will help down the road for the process is when you have those peers that you can talk to throughout your career. If you can't get to a therapist, say you go every 2 weeks and I need to talk, you find those people to talk to. So I think that's as important as
and
going
with the
to
younger
therapy.
people who are willing to talk about it now.
Yes.
Versus, when I started,
really,
they're like, we don't need to talk about that. Don't worry.
You're unfortunately, I mean, we kind of talked about it before. You're almost like the last generation to retire without any type of mental health, anything.
Right.
Well, just EAP, but nothing proactive.
Nothing what it is
very
today.
Very passive.
Right.
Nothing what it is
Not
today.
even close. Correct. It's the difference between passive help and active help. It's literally, you were the last one to say, yeah, it's over there.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Here's a card.
Right. If at best.
Yeah.
At best.
Yeah.
So is that the best piece of advice you can get somebody as they're thinking about retirement is it's never too early to start therapy and you should be off-gassing your problems before you're thinking about it?
Yeah, that's the biggest one. I mean, obviously you got to talk to your family about it and the other things that you were talking about, but you also got to, like you said, take care of yourself because I don't think you see the storm on the horizon when you retire. Sure. And I think that's with everybody, but then we've got all of these, like you said, these runs that start popping up, and I had to keep reminding myself sometimes it's over. These runs were there, but it's over. I don't have to worry about, things would pop up in my head. And, I think we all you keep looking at the calendar. Hey, when I work next, that's right, I'm retired, but then you start thinking about when I was on 40 hours, deadlines and stuff, I'm like, that's the next guy's problem. I had to keep reminding myself that you are retired and trying to get into that mindset to allow yourself to start enjoying it.
The very first fire chief at West Bloomfield that I worked for, his name was Jim Poppelreiter. He worked 40 years. Wow. Literally had every position in the department except for EMS captain.
Almost cool. 2 careers.
Yeah, they named a street after him. He's a great guy.
Yeah.
And I asked him, I'm like, we were a fireman longer than longer than you were a normal person.
Right.
What did it feel like? He's like, after about 6 months, I just kept saying I felt weird.
Right.
And what he eventually realized, he's like, I don't really have these looming responsibilities nagging at me. Like, you got to be at Civic Center. You got to go get the promotion. All the things. And you're like, oh, it's just about me. And it's not in a selfish way.
Right.
It's about in a healthy way of making it about you and recognizing that.
After about 6 months, I started dreaming again.
Wow.
And my wife said, she would argue, not argue mad at me, but she's like, you're dreaming. I'm like, I'm telling you, I'd never had dreams, or at least I never remembered them, never. I think you start getting real sleep.
I bet your nervous system wasn't off.
You weren't able to flipped on that. Still. Yeah.
So you're
primed.
Yeah. And you're getting dreams and I'm like, whoa. That's what this is like. How weird is that,
For what? I mean, 25 years, dude. You're on somebody else's schedule.
Right.
You know what I mean? Even you're on somebody else's schedule. When you go to work, you're at the beck and call for 24 hours.
And that was the one thing that drove Amy crazy because I hated being late. When I was off duty for things that would start on a particular time. Church, it starts at 10 o'clock, or a movie. And I'm like, it's 9:15. We got to get going. Churches. She goes, it's like 10 minutes away. I know, but we got to go. What if there's a train in the way? What if there's a car accident? What if? She's like,
I'm the same way.
I can hear my wife.
I'm the same way, bro.
Yeah.
And I think that has to do with the job that we're in. Because when you get the call, you already know you're behind the 8 ball.
Yes.
Right? This person, heart attack, for instance, right? Person not breathing. You already know that they've been down 4+ minutes by the time you leave the barn. So you're already like, we got to be there already. I don't want to be late. I want to take my time getting to church or getting to the movie or whatever.
So you've resolved that? Like you've kind of
I like to leave
at least recognize.
I like to leave like 9:30 now. It's
right. You're cooler about it.
Yeah.
It doesn't go away because my father-in-law was a firefighter for 30 years.
Yeah.
The guy's been retired as long now. No, he hasn't.
Right.
He's retired like 20 years now, and he's still the same. So it's not going anywhere. It's just who we are now. He was in the military before too, so he's got double down.
Or you get stuck in a train and I'll like turn and take the long way, and she goes, "Realize we'd be here at the same time." I'm like, "Yeah, but we're moving."
Yes,
and I think it's
yes, 100%, bro.
I'm making progress.
I'm doing something.
Right.
Yes. We've talked about your career. We've talked about kind of retirement, that kind of stuff. What is the one thing you wish you had known about mental health and retirement before you retired? And kind of what kind of message would you like to leave our listeners today with?
I think the big thing is it can help. Plain and simple, almost get help before you need help. Because you don't realize it. I think once you get to therapy and you see how effective it is, and I think you start realizing the stress that you had, because we get coping mechanisms to deal with it ourselves, but get it early, even if you don't need it all the time. If it's a once a month thing, or
think you need it,
or you think
you might need it.
You
not
think
know.
you need it, yeah. I think you need it, and you don't know exactly. So don't be afraid. Don't be afraid of what other first responders are thinking, because they're not the ones that are going to have to deal with you later on down the road. And hopefully you can set an example then. If you come into work in a better mood and being able to deal with things, you can lead by example, and hopefully they'll follow suit and ask how you're doing it.
I love it.
Yeah.
Great.
Just hope and I think you're onto something, sir, because I'm surrounded by a lot of millennials at work that are the first generation that we complain about, but they're also the first generation, and I'm joking about the complaining, they're also the first generation who are real about how they feel.
I think
I feel them going, hey,
right.
let's say, because I know some like super athletes that are extremely macho,
that
are like, I was at therapy yesterday, and I'm like, good for you, man.
Yeah, exactly. No,
This is
awesome. 5 years ago, you never would have heard someone talk about therapy at work.
No.
Physical therapy, because they like tore their whatever.
But now it's like, oh yeah, my therapist said this to me the other day, and you're like, what?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And I think the newer generation, they get a lot of bad rap. I think they do a lot of things better than us, and and I'm sure our parents said the same thing. Oh, knuckleheads, but they do some things that we should have done, and I think this is one of them. Is therapy? They're open about it. In the long run, they're going to be enjoying retirement a lot more, and maybe even a lot longer because of it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I want to break in just for 1 second. As you guys are sitting here talking, my only thinking that I can think about was nobody knows the size of their bucket, right? When you're getting that single drop, you have no idea.
That's actually a good. That's
full?
great.
Some people's buckets are bigger than others.
Yeah.
Yes.
Genetically.
Right.
That's a great point.
Or their time. My buckets, I got 3 buckets going. Yeah. Right? No, that's a great one.
Yeah. That's actually a great point.
Good job, Johnny in the booth.
Johnny in the booth shouting out, man. I love it, bro.
The third co-host.
I love it, man. He's behind, what is it called? Like the third wall or the fourth wall? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Coming in.
Who's that talking?
Yeah, where is it?
He's actually AI. He does everything.
I love it, man. Johnny coming in for the booth. Man.
To kind of end that, I think hopefully as we go on, we recognize that generationally we can learn from the generation before and after us.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
And everybody can kind of win. And I hope that the oral tradition that the frontline communities really have, talking to each other about the past, present, and future, because we're always trying to solve problems. Hopefully that tradition turns into healthy conversations about directing each other when we're not at our best.
Yep.
Yeah.
I
Absolutely.
think we'll avoid a lot of problems that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think doing like what Steve's doing today, we just talk about it.
That's
you have the guys who have come before talk about it in a real way, and not just the rated G version, but hey,
Right.
this is how we learn. Everything in all the first responder services is passed down.
Right.
So it's just another thing we're passing down to make the job better.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So thank you for coming on here.
Oh, thanks for having me. I really appreciate what you guys do. I can see, I like to see what the fire service is going to be like in 25 years and take a snapshot now and then and see what's different, because I think it's going to be a lot better place because of this.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So appreciate you coming out.
At least in that aspect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who knows what else we got ahead
of us.
That's true. That's true.
All right, before we go, give everybody your website for check out your wood.
Oh, yeah. Check out the website for our woodworking friend here.
Yeah, you can actually, the easier one is the Instagram. It's Perna Woodcraft Design.
Check them out. Perna Woodcraft
Design. We'll put it up on the we'll put it up.
And I'll show you some of the stuff I'm making. It's so much fun. It really
Good
is.
For you.
So yeah, go check it out. And you want me to make you something? I love making custom stuff.
We want a monkey skull made out of wood.
A monkey skull, 3-dimensional?
Yeah.
Oh wow!
I
haven't carved, but this is
that face. That face told me everything I needed to know.
Sounds like I need new tools.
Yeah. Amy, he's gonna need a 3D printer.
It could be a gorilla. It's fine. Well, thank you very much for coming on, buddy.
Thanks.
Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you for listening to the Minds on the Frontline podcast. We hope everyone enjoyed this episode. We have more great content coming out soon. Be sure to check out Steve's woodworking skills on Instagram and at pernawoodcraftdesign.com. Please check us out on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook, and make sure to like and subscribe to all Minds on the Frontline podcast social media channels. Have a great day.